Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabley, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. So, welcome back to Matter of Facts podcast. It's January the 15th, and this is usually the time of year where everybody's doing this whole new year, new me thing, and I mean, that would involve me not screeching, yelling about government incompetence and gun control, which I was content to try until these mother effing idiots turned the dial up to 11. So, I'm prefacing this by saying that if you have small ears or weak stomachs, this might be one you want to turn the volume down on, because if you can't tell from the subtitles, I am freaking pissed about what's going on.
Oh,
pissed.
Phil.
Pissed.
Oh, Phil.
That's why Andrew's the calm one and I'm the angry one. But before we get to screaming and yelling about gun control, have you done anything productive in the world of prepping in the last week since we spoke?
I finally got my buckets put together. Been talking to the Proud Texan, or whatever name he goes by in the Patreon chat here. But he gave me a pretty good sized list. Basically, it comes down to like a month of food for one person per bucket. And so I put 2 buckets together. I got plans to probably when I get paid this week, I'll go and I'll go pick up enough items for another 2 buckets. But no, my parents came down this weekend, which was fun seeing them. And then, but my dad, he helped me install a gas stove. I just heard the Biden administration shriek in horror, but just installed a gas stove. Had electric, so we went and I spent like $100 buying all the pipe and all the gadgets and all the fixings and all the crap I needed to do. But yeah, got that hooked up, plumbed in, and it worked good.
So when there's a new hole in the ozone layer and, you know, children in Africa have asthma, it's all Andrew Bobo's fault.
Fact.
Okay, I'm emotionally at peace with that.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't care. But it's their problem, not mine. I'm cooking food. But no, other than that, nothing much. Just was trying to stock some food, put more water away. I've been kind of taking a page out of your book, and I'm not doing, just because like I don't really buy small things of soda. I buy a lot of 2 liters just because like I drink my whiskey and Cokes and stuff like that. So, but I've been putting, every time I finish one, I wash it out as best as I can, let it dry, and then fill it back up with water and stick it on the shelf downstairs. So,
question from the audience.
Do you have gas utilities ran to your house, or do you have a bottle that you have filled? Utilities, which I have a feeling I know where he's going to go with this. But yeah, no, I got gas. I don't have a pig or nothing like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, same criticisms people made of us. We're also on city gas, I guess you could say. But you know, this is also why, like, fortunately, down here when we have major power outages from hurricanes, gas service is usually not interrupted, which is nice. And if it did become interrupted, that's why I've got 2 20-pound propane cylinders on the back porch, and I've got a Coleman stove, and I've got the gas conversion hose. So, I mean, you know, fair criticism. Make sure you have a backup so that you could still boil water and cook for yourself.
Oh, yeah. No, I got the gas stove now, and then I have a single burner stove that I had at prepper camp. And I have, I don't even know how many tanks of gas for that. And then I have a whole stack of the Coleman containers and stuff like that. So the gas. So I just so I was looking at maybe ditching the single burner, maybe going dual. But I don't know. We'll see. I like the single burner. It works out good.
I mean, I use a dual burner, but that's more because I'm cooking for three, not just
Right.
one. If I'm
Right.
cooking for just myself, then honestly, the single burner, I barely ever turn on the second burner unless I'm using the big old griddle where I need both burners to heat that whole surface.
Hmm.
But I don't know. This past weekend, I finally completed what I'd set out for myself. I took the entire long term food storage stack, popped it all open, went through it, pulled one or two things I pulled out and I pitched because honestly, it was getting to a point where I didn't want to seal it back up for a long period of time.
Hmm.
A lot of it I actually took and repackaged so it was more space efficient. I could fit more stuff into those buckets. So I started off with 7 buckets and um, three buckets of just straight Mountain House.
No, nice.
And I finished off with 9 buckets in the long term, plus the 3 buckets of Mountain House that are still sitting there. And that's in addition to like the can rack and the extra pantry, the main pantry, the freezer, the chest freezer, the fridge. You know, and I made a YouTube video that I'm probably going to drop maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I just got to give it a once over, make sure it's not really janky, any more janky than the stuff I usually make. But like one of the patrons asked that like I talk about and maybe do a quick video on how I do long term food storage, which it's like I told him, like it's probably not as complicated as people make it out in their heads to be. But kind of my philosophy on food storage is that the prepper food, the long term stuff in the buckets is not separate. It's an extension for what you normally store and eat. So it's the fact that like, you know, most people have a fridge freezer and a pantry. And the only difference between that and me is I have another freezer and another pantry and then buckets. So my food stock is just deeper than most, but it's not like this weird thing, you
Hmm.
know. I cast off this idea that like you need to have like 100 cases of MREs or crazy shit. It's just whatever you eat, if you can store it in such a way that it lasts a reasonable amount of time, then you should store enough of it that by the time that food nears its expiration date, you're eating it. So if you have stuff that let's say I think like canned tuna fish, canned chicken, stuff like that is usually good for like a couple of years. So I would say if you can purchase like one extra or two extra every time you go to the store and you get your pantry deep enough that as you rotate it out to where the oldest stuff gets eaten first and the new stuff you just bought goes into the back of the pantry, as long as you're not getting to the point where you're throwing food out because it's spoiled before you ate it, then you keep packing more and more and more to get deeper and deeper and deeper. With the idea that if suddenly the grocery stores just boarded up and there was no more food, the point from where you're at now to starvation is so much deeper than it would be than if you just bought stuff one at a time.
Hmm.
Like it sounds like common sense, but it is common sense.
Right. And I mean, and that's the thing is like I mean, I've been buying. I really like the Nor. So Nor makes some really good meals. Like they're already dehydrated. Like, I mean, all you need is you like I'll need milk, but like you can use water now, and so those are pretty good. I love the canned chicken. So I have stacks upon stacks upon stacks of canned chicken because it's just a great go to, something quick, and a good source of protein. And so I have a bunch of that stuff. I need to do. So my next thing I need to do is actually go through my pantry and organize it a lot better. Right now I just have like it just canned goods thrown. I have uh, a bunch of like, cause I really like the instant mashed potatoes. Not to mention those are really quick for like camping trips, or even just yeah, just to have on the shelf. I mean, I like the old fashioned way of doing boiling potatoes, but just a quick mashed potatoes is really good, and so I have stacks of that stuff, and so I need to go through and actually like organize. Uh, True. Yeah. I mean, I lived off ramen, and when I was in college, and I have a I have a couple cases of ramen that I keep around for just like if I really want to feel bad about myself again, or take me back to those memories. But no, I can't stomach ramen too much anymore because I ate it so much in college. So I the Nor meals have taken the have replaced the ramen for me. So, but no, I and the thing is though is like with some of these dried goods, I need to do some research on. Like I understand they have like the best buy date and all that crap, but some of these they're if they're already dried, they have like I'm kind of curious. I need to look into it more about like how long can they how long can they last on the shelf or in a bucket? Because you have noodles, you have the elbow macaroni, stuff like that. All that stuff is it's already dried. It's already. I mean, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I feel like that stuff
Mm-hmm.
should last quite a long time on the shelf, as long as you don't get moisture and it doesn't get wet or anything like that. It should last for a while, and that's so I kind of I did a little bit of an experiment. One of the buckets I put up, I did put some noodles and stuff in it, just to see. I don't know. Maybe I dated it, so I'll have to come back to it in a few years and see what they taste like.
Well, I mean, two things. First, and I talked about this in the video that I need to post, but like the two enemies to food storage, if you're talking about non-refrigerated,
Hmm.
are humidity or moisture and oxygen.
Hmm.
The more you can put these items into an oxygen-free, dehumidified environment, the longer they're going to last. Because those are the two things that promote food spoilage: is
Hmm.
oxidation and moisture. So that's why, like, my personal way of doing this has always been into food grade buckets. Make sure you have a sealable, gasketed
Hmm.
lid. You can do the
Yep.
same thing with Mylar. It works just fine. It's just not my way of doing it. But you put it into an airtight environment. I put desiccant packs in to get pull all the moisture out of the air because I mean it's Southeast Louisiana. It's
Hmm.
humid down here 370 days out of the year. Can't do anything about it. But I'm at least trying to make sure that when I seal that bucket, the moisture inside the bucket is as minimal as possible. And then I throw an oxygen absorber into it. So we're getting rid of the oxygen. We're getting rid of as much of the humidity as possible. It's in an airtight environment. I'm constantly checking on to make sure that pests and insects and rodents aren't trying to get into it. But at the end of the day, like I always tell people, I'm like, if we look at food storage and we look at subsistence, we have to take ourselves out of the first world mentality we have and look at honestly developing nations in the third world or look at
Yeah.
ancient worlds. They used to store rice in open containers or in bags without any of the food preservation techniques we have available today, and it lasted for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So I go back to this idea that, like, if ancient man, not even ancient, call it 300 years ago, if they knew how to preserve food, then there are ways to do without refrigeration. Now,
Hmm.
personally, I love my chest freezer. I love having, a 7 cubic foot chest freezer filled to the brim with sausage and bacon and beef and chicken and butter and cheese and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, those dry goods don't require a ton of maintenance or anything really esoteric to keep them. I mean, it's like you said, if you're dealing with like dried rice, dried beans, pasta, anything that's already dried out, anything that's dehydrated, if you just keep moisture and oxygen away from it, it's going to last for a good long while.
Yeah. Yeah. And I probably did overkill, but I
There's no
threw.
such thing.
I know, right? No, I threw because of the this is now that I actually like I said I actually have the room to start putting stuff away like this. I threw three oxygen absorbers in each bucket, one on the bottom and two on top. Kind of tucked them in, put them in different places and sealed it. So just I don't know. Like I said, it's probably overkill in a way, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, and they weren't that expensive, so screw it.
It just depends because, like, the oxygen absorbers themselves come in different sizes, and some
Yeah.
of them are sized. Not only do they come in different sizes, but the amount of airspace you have in the bucket also
Right.
matters. So, like, if you have a bucket that is like filled to the brim versus half full, it's going to require differing amounts of oxygen absorbers to achieve the goal. And that's based on the size of oxygen absorber you're using and how much free space you have. Which is why I
These
always
were
tell people, just for space efficiency, just fill the bucket to the brim. find
Yeah.
stuff to shove
So these
into it.
were I bought these are 2000 cc.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Three in a bucket, 3 in a 5 gallon bucket. You overdid a little bit.
Probably that's
It's
what
not going to hurt anything. It's
I
just,
know. I know. I think it was Stuart was the one that was telling me about the stuff. He was telling me. I think it was two, one on top, one on bottom. I threw another one in just for good measure because I was paranoid.
I
But
mean, it also depends on how often you want to check your stuff. Because like I check my long term like every 2 to 3 years.
yeah,
So, but then again, the stuff I'm storing is like rice and dried beans for the most part, or like pancake mix, which is a powder, or like powdered milk. It's stuff that
yeah.
if I'm being reasonable is probably going to be just fine on just fine in an oxygen free
Well,
environment for probably 10 years.
yeah, and I mean before we wrap this up and get to the real the matter that we're
Shut up,
all
Phil. Get to the topic.
yeah. No. It's no. I mean, but the thing is though is like a lot of the preparedness books that I listen to, like 299 Days and then anything by Franklin Hort and stuff like that. A lot of them discuss a lot of crap, like the way they put stuff away. 299 Days, the guy, he really Glenn Tate really writes about how putting away pancake mix and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, you know what? I'm not holding it as fact, but these guys I know do a lot of research. So if if the research in their book is having them put stuff away for long periods of time, I mean, I'm doing my own research on top of that, but I don't know. I feel like I can trust them on some of their opinions if you really want to
Seems
be lazy
reasonable.
about it. But so yeah, anyway, let's get to the elephant in the room.
So Andrew and I sat down to talk about all the wonderful ways that the anti-gunners, the gun grabbers, are having an absolute freaking field day. And I tried to arrange these in order of like small high five to us to things that are going to cause me to lose my mind. So I figured we'd start with some good news. The bump stock ban, as stupid as that was in the first place, got slapped down. And
Yeah,
even when I talk about the bump stock ban to like people who are hardcore Second Amendment guys, I feel the need to point out to them I think bump stocks are stupid.
yeah. I don't
I
have one. I don't need. I don't have a reason for them. But that means like you and I both said, it doesn't mean that we don't believe that someone shouldn't own it.
I mean,
So
I don't think a person, I don't personally feel the need to smoke marijuana, but I don't think somebody else should be prevented from doing something just because I don't choose to participate in it. I mean,
right,
if that sounds like a really libertarian to a fault, okay, fine, fair criticism. But like, that's me in a nutshell is just because I don't think it makes any sense doesn't mean you should be prevented from doing it or having it or whatever.
right.
But like the bump stock ban to me was just the stupidest thing on earth because it's like bump stocks just sound to me like belt loops with extra steps and a $200 price tag. But banning them was equally stupid. But the fact that the ban got slapped down really, really hard, I like because the ruling that's come out of that is the Fifth Circuit seems to be taking the position correctly for a change that that the a three-letter agency, a subsidiary of the executive branch, does not have the purview to make law, which they don't, and they're not supposed to, and that's why they call these things rules and not laws, because they can't make laws, because that's not how it works. All of you freaking morons should have freaking paid a little more attention in civics. Y'all might know this. Not saying our audience are idiots, but these idiots that are doing this.
Yeah,
But like, that's how this is supposed to work. Congress makes law, the executive branch enforces it, and the judiciary smacks both around when they're coloring outside the lines, and that's what had to happen here. So I mean, that's a good thing. Oh, Tom, I see your comment. I'm not ignoring you, but don't beat me to the punchline. So that's one in the win column. The judiciary finally pulled their panties out of their butt and said, "No, you can't make up law. That's not your purview." Hopefully, what's following behind that is that the ATF's attempt to redefine what a framer receiver is looks like it's in serious jeopardy. Have you been following this one, Andrew?
yeah. They're trying to redefine the frame receiver. Basically, they're saying everything is a gun, and
Everything
so
is a gun. I
Yeah,
agree with them. Everything is a gun. I mean, let me loose in friggin' Home Depot for 15 or
right,
20 minutes unsupervised. I can make you a friggin' gun. It ain't that
right.
daggum difficult.
But that's the thing is like they're claiming that everything should be serialized and needs a background check, including and I mean and this is including upper receivers. This is including bolt carrier groups. This is including trigger packs. This isn't. I mean, this is everything. Like anything that you need to do to build a gun is basically they're like it needs to be serialized and we need to run a background check on you.
But see, I agree with them. I agree with them. Everything is a gun. Everything should be regulated as a gun. We cannot have dangerous people running around just making guns all willy nilly. That is completely out of bounds, Andrew Bobo. We have to make this stop. Matter of fact, if y'all give me just the briefest of moments to share what I've got queued up in this other tab. See, like that right there. That is an AR lower made out of a chunk of wood. So I say we should force the lumber industry to serialize 2x4s just in case. And while we're at it, the plumbing industry, because I know how to make some really devious stuff out of freaking like, steam pipe, water pipe, and everything. Pressure cookers. Pressure cookers also need serial numbers. And U-Haul trucks. Anfo. Anfo needs a lot more control. How far down this road can we go, Andrew?
Pretty far because it's the end game. The end game is just control, and that's what they want. And I mean, and that's why a lot of places you see once you lose that right, especially I mean, look at different countries. Once you lose said right, you never get it back. So, yeah, the frame. So, but the in the good news though, the frame and receiver rule. There's a couple different companies that have jumped on the lawsuit, and they're getting slapped down. The ATF is getting slapped around about this, which is good, and I'm hoping that we get a final ruling on what's going on. I haven't heard much about it recently because now the new one, the new rule that just dropped, which and by new rule I mean the redefining of an old rule. And honestly, hats off to the ATF though, because they pulled the biggest like gotcha in a way, because they I don't want to get ahead of it, but we'll explain later.
Yeah, don't beat me to the punchline, man. But yeah, this whole idea of like anything that can be turned into a firearm should be serialized. Rock on. Let's go. Let's go with that. I promise you, though, all these dipshits in the friggin' legislature and in the ATF and in all facets of society that keep pushing for this idea that we have to serialize anything that can be turned into a firearm, I can find something I can make into a gun that's going to screw your life up if it suddenly gets regulated a lot harder. I promise you I can. It's not that freaking difficult. See, people that don't know anything about guns think they know a lot about guns, and they're terrified of the thing they don't know any damn thing about. And they think it is so simple to make a firearm. So we have to regulate ghost guns, this almost already complete item that requires a small amount of additional work that does require a little bit of tools and know-how, but it's not exactly rocket surgery. On the other hand, a person like me who understands the mechanics of how firearms work can literally go into a freaking hardware store for 15 minutes unsupervised and come out with a gun. It
Hmm.
isn't that freaking hard. If you understand the mechanics of how it works, you can turn almost anything into a firearm.
Well,
So pursuing this jackassery down its natural road to conclusion means everything has to be regulated and which I think is honestly the ultimate goal. They don't want
mhm.
people to be able to make their own firearms. They want everything to go through a background check, everything to go through a registry. They want to know where all the guns are. They don't want you coloring outside the lines, making your own stuff, even though it's been perfectly freaking legal for 240 something years.
Well, we were man was making their own weapons and firearms uh, before the Second Amendment was even a thought. Um, and the thing is, though, is like the frame and receiver or the whole ghost gun. If you notice the left, the anti-gun group, stuff like that, they're really good. I mean, their PR campaign. I mean, they're really good at taking certain terms and completely putting a negative twist on it. like the whole term of like ghost gun. Uh, you didn't really hear that 5 maybe 10 years ago. You really didn't hear much about quote unquote ghost guns. It was just the unserialized firearms. And I found it on serialized fire. Cops would I found on serialized firearms at scenes with gang violence. It was all like everything was unserialized. Now it's ghost gun. They've been tying everything to ghost guns because they're untraceable. Well, an untraceable firearm is a firearm that doesn't have a serial number that they can't trace back to the original point of purchase or and everything like that. So they take the term of ghost gun and they're demonizing it, and they're putting a negative twist on it, which the mainstream media loves to jump on. Which then the people who eat it all up and they just get their news from the mainstream media, they turn around, that's what they believe, and so that's the thing is like the term a ghost gun has been around forever. I mean, if you can't track it because a serial number is scraped off from a crime scene, it's a ghost gun. You don't know where it came from. You don't know who got it originally, where it was stolen from, and all this stuff. So that's a ghost gun. That fits their definition.
Yeah,
But
but
because people are making their own from at home, legally making stuff, they don't like that. So they're like, well, no, you're a criminal too.
yeah, my gripe is that 100 years ago, you could literally like cash and carry a freaking gun out of a hardware store with no freaking background check. 80 years ago, you could buy a freaking Tommy gun, no background check, full auto, full
My
bang bang,
grandpa has
big
old
mags.
cereal or Sears catalogs that he's had since like from years. I mean, years and years ago. And I was looking through them, and like rifles and shotguns, you could order them from a Sears catalog and have them shipped to your house. And I mean, I remember as a kid when I was growing up. I mean, and that's the thing that's the thing that is interesting is things have changed so much. Regulations have changed so much. I remember as a kid going to school, and because it was hunting season, people had either bows in their vehicles or they had rifles. We had a bomb threat one time at our school, and the bomb threat stated that there's a bomb in the somebody in the it was in a car in the parking lot, and they they basically had they basically had us open up vehicles and stuff like that, and the amount of guns and bows that they found, like what? But now you can't. You do that, holy crap, you'd be expelled.
So, funny story. Several years ago, down here in Louisiana, a young man in another parish here in this state, he was, I don't recall all the specifics now. We talked about it on the podcast several years ago, but in the state of Louisiana, it is the state law specifically states that a gun-free zone around a school cannot be construed to prevent a person exercising their constitutionally protected rights, such as, and this is straight in the law, such as having a firearm completely contained within a motor vehicle. And that is like very specifically stated because in the state of Louisiana, your vehicle is considered an extension of your home. If you can legally have in your home, you can legally have in your vehicle, you could drive literally right through a school zone. You can drive up to the front walkway of a school to pick your kid up from school. And I know I've done it, it's legal. As long as that firearm stays in the vehicle, it's legal. The gun-free zone does not reach in your vehicle to disarm you. Somehow, a young man, high school student, I think he might have been a junior or senior, he had a firearm. He'd driven his father's vehicle to school, and I think found a hunting rifle in the trunk. Didn't think anything of it, shut the trunk, figured, okay, I'll make sure dad gets it out when I get home. Told a friend of his, someone overheard it, reported it, school resources officer called the sheriff, they arrested the young man for having a firearm in a gun-free zone. Local Second Amendment groups went ballistic because the state law clearly exempted that activity, and the school resource officer and the local cop obviously didn't give a damn about the law. They kept pointing to gun-free zone. I never did manage to make contact with the young man or his family. I mean, I never heard it go any further than the initial arrest, so I'm thinking probably what happened was the family found a lawyer to explain to dumbasses. What you're doing is illegal and you can't hold this kid. But it's still very endemic of the fact that what is what is legal doesn't matter to a certain personality. What they
Well,
want is to take the crazy people with guns and put them in jail to make an example out of them to cool the ownership and carrying of arms.
well, not today. It's no longer innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty until you can try to prove yourself innocent. Hopefully, one day, and then even then, you're still guilty. Like
Yeah.
that's, I mean, look at Kyle Rittenhouse. I know we had a big, I mean, our show on that with Trek. That kid is still like fighting for his freedom because he's getting sued and people are trying to still take him to court and get him locked away and all kinds of stuff.
I saw
And
somebody on Twitter literally 24 hours ago who was screeching and yelling about Kyle Rittenhouse and murderers running free and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And thankfully, they were getting ratioed to hell in the comments by people over and over and over and over, like quoting the law to this knucklehead, saying he did not break the law. Now, like Trek said, like we said, we could have a big old scream and debate about whether or not what he did was advisable or smart or
yeah,
there were definitely more risk averse actions to take. But in the aspect of legality, calling him a murderer is stupid because what he did was not a murder. It was a homicide. Apparently, legally, it was a justified homicide. But to call him a murderer to me is just stupid. It's like,
well,
tell me you know jack shit about concealed carry, about firearms laws, about self defense laws. Tell me you know jack shit about any of that without saying it out loud.
and before we get the train back on the rails, I just want to poke. I just want to poke fun, not necessarily poke fun, but I want to point at a story. And I do not remember what state it was in, but someone just got beat to death with a skateboard. They got hit with a skateboard and it killed them. And assaulted with a skateboard, I should say, by an individual. And the meme I saw that made me laugh was that picture of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV. It was someone put Rittenhouse's face on top of that, and it was like person assaults with a skateboard dies or whatever, and he just like pointed to it. And it's like, see, I'll see. But yeah. So anyway, what's the next thing that happened?
Before we move on to the next one, Black Powder Therapy in the chats on YouTube said that he had a similar experience where he was told he was breaking the law for leaving a firearm in his vehicle, and he basically told him, arrest me and let's find out. I had a similar experience at the college I went to where I don't even remember how it came up. I mean, but basically I had a knockdown, drag out argument that ended in, go ahead and have me arrested and let's see how this ends.
Mhm.
Because I will finish college tuition free. If that freaking if that pudgy bastard sitting over there, in the campus security office comes over here and puts me in handcuffs, I will finish college without paying a cent. Let's go for that. It got dropped, but it's still it irks my nerves when people that don't know crap about the law purport to know crap about the law. New Mexico House Bill 50. These people want to ban all magazines that hold 10 rounds or more. So, 1911s are revolvers, guys. Y'all have a party, because that's all y'all get to have after this. To say nothing about,
Until this doesn't stop crime and another shooting happens, and then they go, "Oh no, we need to ban things over 5 rounds."
So then we're going
It's
to take
just
all
gonna
the
get worse and
6-shooters
worse.
and pack one of the cylinders with JB Weld.
It's going to, if they can get their hands on the no more than 10 rounds, you're gonna see no more. Eventually, you're gonna see no more than 5 rounds, and then you're gonna see, oh, it has to be a bolt action or pump, and then even then, because pumps and stuff, a lot of the shotguns, they want to make it to where they can't hold more than so many in a tube and stuff. So you're gonna see where it needs to be single shot only, and basically a break action to where you can only load one shell at a time, like that kind of crap, or the musket, the black powder, a black powder rifle. Oh, I got to our muzzle loader. It's like, okay, you got to load it from the muzzle and do all this stuff. Like until until they until they get their way of basically an ultimate ban, that is what they're going for. They're just going to keep whittling away at your right.
So now, Black Powder Therapy said they chose 9 rounds for a reason. Let me postulate for a moment, because I saw somebody going down this road, and I tend to subscribe to the theory. I'd come to it kind of on my own before I saw somebody else vocalize it. But basically, what they were saying was, if you look at all of your Andrew, like if I just had to ask you, what are the 3 most common handguns for sale in America today? Don't look it up. Just shoot from the hip.
I mean,
You're probably going to be right.
Glock, Smith & Wesson, maybe CZ.
Glock 19, Smith & Wesson M&P series, and let's not say CZ. CZs are for bearded hipsters. Not that I would know anything about that.
It's getting more popular.
Well, let's say revolvers. Smith & Wesson J-frame, super common one. How many of those do you think, well, not the revolver, but the 2 semi-autos, Glock 19 and Smith & Wesson M&P, can you get either one of those with a 9-round magazine?
No,
They don't make them. They don't make them. Nobody makes them. No manufacturer makes a 9-round magazine for a Glock 19. So what just happened by imposing a 9-round magazine limit in that state? You've made it to where that firearm can literally not be sold in the state anymore because no one makes a 9-round magazine, and nobody's going to make a 9-round magazine just for the poor bastards in New Mexico. They're going to basically just refuse. The manufacturers will probably refuse to service that state. And
find 10-round magazines.
Huh?
I said when they did the magazine ban, but and down to 10-round magazines, you can find 10-round mags that are limited to 10 rounds.
But the problem was that was nationwide.
Right, but you can still, because California is going through a bunch of that crap right now. I know they're getting struck down and all that stuff, but you can still find 10-round mags. But the idea that they keep but it puts a burden on the manufacturer, and that's what they want. That's what they want to do. They want it. That's the end goal.
Yeah. That's where I'm going with this. The reason you can still get those 10-round magazines is not because just California did it. It's because it was a nationwide ban. Because it was nationwide, there was enough. This is like business Phil putting on his business hat. If there is enough potential sales to be made, a manufacturer will respond to a given market segment, given a competitive enough price point that they can make money doing it. Now, the problem with that is, if the entire country of the U.S. was to impose a 10-round magazine ban, all popular magazines would be made in 10-round capacities, period, end discussion, because there's enough market there to demand, there's enough market demand to drive the production of those magazines. There's enough. Now, the problem is when the 10-round magazine ban was lifted nationwide, but certain states held it, there's still enough because the infrastructure to produce those magazines has already been bought and paid for. The magazines are already being produced. They're just going to shift part of that production line that makes 10-round magazines back to making full-capacity magazines because there's more to be had in that. And if you look at the cost of a standard capacity magazine versus a 10-round magazine, the 10-round magazine usually costs more because fewer of them get sold. This is economics 101, boys and girls. The problem here is that when New Mexico is the only state that says 9-round magazine limit, they will not respond to that market segment because it's too daggum small, not to justify the production of the magazines, but to justify the infrastructure to produce them. So the problem here is that what New Mexico is doing, I think very strategically, is they're saying 9-round magazine limit, knowing that's a de facto ban. And here's the problem. If a manufacturer dips their toe into the water and says, okay, we'll make a 9-round Glock 19 magazine because somebody in New Mexico is going to need it, all they have to do is change that limit to 8. And now the company that was going to make those magazines just lost their butt financially. It's too dangerous given that climate. So I think they chose 9 rounds very strategically. I think the devious little bastards are trying to de facto ban, they'll call it high-capacity magazines, but let's call it what it is. A freaking Glock 19 is probably the most common concealed carry firearm in the United States of freaking America. And if you can take more of those out of the hands of the citizenry, that makes the anti-gunners really excited. I think that's why they did this. This whole idea that we're doing this for public safety is it's bullcrap. They will not be satisfied until everybody's carrying around black powder muskets, which, like Black Powder Therapy pointed out, if it's black powder muzzle loading, it's not considered a firearm. You can have one shipped to your freaking front door. I personally would love to see people carrying around like blunderbusses that'll shove a wad of friggin', lead at somebody the size of your fist and carry those around because it's not a firearm. So legally,
Mm-hmm.
cops can't tell you anything about carrying them on the streets. It does require a permit. It's not a firearm.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, maybe that's just what we should do. We should all start making blunderbusses and carry those everywhere. Carry them in gun-free zones. We'll let people freak the hell out about it and say, "Oh, you broke the law. It's not a firearm legally." I'm gonna start something. The ATF's gonna kick my freaking front door in one of these days because I'm giving people bad ideas. But dadgummit, it just pisses me off. But not nearly as bad as this pissed me off. Because this directly impacts one of our patrons, who, by the way, I don't know if you were in the chat the other day. He would be a fun guest to have on, actually, to talk about this, because he went ballistic over this. Illinois assault weapons ban. Oh, where do we start? Have you looked into this?
A little bit. You know more about it than I do.
Yeah, let me give you the highlight reel. Prohibits the sale and distribution of firearms that fit the definition of assault weapon, which is a completely made up term for things that scare people. Requires gun owners to register all assault weapons with state police within 300 days. Unregistered possession is a Class 3 felony. Prohibits the manufacture, delivery, sale, purchase, or possession of a detachable magazine with a capacity larger than 10 rounds. Violation, Class 3 felony. So even if you have like an AR that's chairman of 458 SOCOM, that can just barely squeak under the radar. Pro tip, any of y'all that are still trading in PMags, they are no longer 5.56 mags. They are 458 SOCOM mags because they only have 10 you can only fit 10 of those into that magazine. Enjoy that. Prohibits switches or kits that convert a pistol into an assault weapon, although switch is not defined in the law. I think they're talking about the little Wish.com Glock switches, but who knows.
Oh.
Prohibits a list of specific firearms that were banned by name. I'll try to dig that up when I pass it back over to you. I'm sure that's going to friggin' grind my damn gears. Allows the state attorney or assistant state attorney to assist the petitioner requesting a firearm restraining order, and bans bump stocks. Bump stocks.
Which it just goes back to everything that they just listed was literally just recently ruled unconstitutional. Which brings me up to a question with the Supreme Court is how far do these states go? I mean, I understand like basically the Supreme Court ruling, and from my understanding, the lower courts, they have to side basically with the higher court in a decision. It's supposed to, yeah. But ultimately, with the middle finger being put up to the Supreme Court by New York, New Jersey, New Mexico, Chicago, or Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, soon to be Michigan, California, with these states basically putting the middle finger up to Bruin and to the ruling of the Supreme Court, a higher court, like the highest court that we have. What else is there to do? Like the thing is there needs to be repercussions to these states. Like there's something has to happen to these states because otherwise but see, and my whole thing is there's no consequences to these states. They can be like, we're gonna pass it, and then all of a sudden it gets drawn up in court and a bunch of it gets through everything, but nothing happens, and they just resubmit it. They just redo another bill and pass it on. So at the end of the day, something needs to happen to these states, to these lawmakers that are creating these laws in the defiance of Bruin. There needs to be something happen that, and this can go both ways too. Something needs to happen to where something like they need to be, something happened. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like they just something needs to happen to where these states there's consequences to these states for doing this. Not, and that's the thing is maybe financially, maybe something needs to happen or physically, maybe some of them need to be, the Supreme Court needs the power to say, "Hey, you're gone." Maybe, I don't know. But then where does that end? So it's one of those things. It's like I don't know. I mean, the thing I like about like the whole Bruin decision is, and honestly, and this can go back to like the whole abortion decision, is the Supreme Court's ruling on abortion, whether you like it or not, it put the power back to the states. It made them so they can make their own decision and stuff like that. Same thing with the thing with the assault weapons bans and all that stuff. Like with their Bruin decision, basically they kicked it back down to the states, saying it's back. Like you guys need to make the right decisions. The courts and the states need to make the right decisions. We shouldn't be hearing these cases at all. These should be struck down in the lower courts and not heard ever again.
I mean,
But
is it too spicy for me to say that the consequence should be a bucket of tar and a bag of feathers?
oh no, I mean that's the thing is but that's the thing is like we need to start holding people accountable, and we need to start and that's the thing though is these laws get brought up, they get passed, they get signed, they get brought into court. One court will say not constitutional, or okay, yeah, let the state do it, and then another court will say nope, not constitutional, and then eventually it gets to the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court's like gonna be like, well, it's unconstitutional. We just ruled this.
See, I do agree with black powder therapy on this, is that the Supreme
Right. No,
Court
that's what I'm saying.
does not and should not have the power to dismiss representatives.
No.
However, if you look at the traditional separation of powers, the arm of the federal government that is supposed to be responsible for enforcing law is the executive branch.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, given the current administration, I don't see them doing fuck all about what's going on.
No, they're fine with it. They're completely with it.
They're running cover for it. I mean, call it what it is. But I had mentioned that while you were talking, I was going to see if I could find the list of firearms that are specifically banned by name. So, A-Arms AP9, Armalite M15 11.5 pistol, Beretta 93R, Bushmaster pistol, let's just go down the list. Heckler & Koch MP5, MP7, VP70, Ingram Mag 10, Mag 11, Intratec Tech 9, Scorpion pistol, Stanchions, Steyr tactical pistol, Uzi, Weaver Arms, assault shotgun or rifle. So American Arms AR-10, AR-15, AR-70, Armalite M15, Avtomat Kalashnikov semi-auto rifle, AR-100 type, AR-180 type.
A lot. Old AR-15.
Barrett, Beretta AR-70, Bushmaster, Calico, Colt, AR-15, Car-15, all imitations, Daewoo's, Dragunovs. I mean, I'll give them their due. They freaking had somebody doing a lot of research to make sure that they got this done. FAMAS, FM, FNC, Smith & Wesson.
But that's the thing, though, is like the MMP, like the MMP-15, I know a lot of like law enforcement agencies. Like
Sterling Mark 6. Jesus, they dug way into the Wayback Machine for this one.
Ruger Mini 14. Folding stock model, though. No, but that's the thing, though, is like there's a bunch of law enforcement agencies and stuff. Like they use the MMP-15. Like, and that's the thing that gets me is with these laws. Of course, I bet you somewhere in the law it says that law enforcement are exempt.
It always is.
Prior is exempt. Prior law enforcement. If you're retired, you're exempt. If you're a correction officer, if you're a judge, you're exempt. Stuff like that, which is BS. And that's the thing, though, is like some of these lawmakers, the lawmakers that put this in the states that are, basically the Republicans are sitting there and they're like, well, it's going to pass anyway. Like they need to try to figure out a way to take out those amendments or amend it or whatever to say, No, if the people can't have it, police can't have it, you can't have it. Like, make it to where like it's gonna pass. It's gonna be pass. It's gonna pass with or without them, or hopefully without them. It's gonna
Make it
pass
a
no matter
poison
what.
pill, in other words.
Make it a poison pill. Say fine. If they can't have it, then you know what? We're gonna amend it, and we want to take out the exception for law enforcement to where active or retired, you cannot have this gun. You need to turn it in. Glock 19, turn it in. Your rifle, turn it in. Your shotgun, turn it in. Every single one. If you are taking it away from the citizenry, nobody should have it.
See,
Period. Dot.
I subscribe to the Ronnie Barrett school of dealing with tyrants and malcontents. And if anybody's not familiar with, most people are probably familiar with who Ronnie Barrett is, and the Barrett 50 BMGs and so on and so forth. But a handful of years ago now, California decided that 50 BMG rifles were scary and were out of bounds. And as they were pushing their assault weapons ban, they were literally holding up one of Barrett's rifles
Mhm.
on, in front of the media, saying this is the kind of thing we have to ban and get rid of. Well, Ronnie Barrett was a little bit upset by this and a little frustrated, seeing how he had a number of firearms currently sitting on his bench at his company from the state of California, from their law enforcement agencies,
Mhm.
requesting service and parts. He sent a letter to the state of California and sent those firearms back to them and said that as long as you ban my firearms from your citizens, I refuse to service your law enforcement agency's firearms. Period. End discussion. Now, I'm sure they found somebody else to do it, but imagine how fast this would come to an end if New Mexico or New York or California called somebody up and said, hey, I need a fresh stack of Glock 19 mags for my firearms for all my law enforcement officers to happily infringe upon the citizenry. And the entire Second Amendment gun space said F off.
Well, I mean,
Refuse to sell them mags, parts, ammo. Buzz off.
right, and
You want to ban this stuff? You don't need it either. Imagine how fast the protective details of these freaking assholes in the state legislatures would realize the error of their ways if they couldn't get their freaking ammunition and mags to protect these dirtbags who are infringing upon the rights of the citizenry. How fast would this change? Now, is it going to be a painful process? I don't really think so, because the truth of the matter is that everyone should have learned the lesson that HK and Colt has learned.
Mhm.
The consumer market outstrips law enforcement in sales happily and repeatedly. So if you want to jump the fence and sell to law enforcement agencies when those states are stripping the rights of their citizens away, I would argue that if you say no, you'll probably find a lot of people more than happy to buy stuff from you who are of the freedom-loving persuasion. And you won't have to say no many times as long as everybody's in lockstep together before these states start to feel the pain.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to start seeing the corporations. Like, I'd like to start seeing some of these corporations actually stepping up for the citizenry. Like, unlike Daniel Defense, who basically gave the middle finger. Danny Daniel, was it Danny? I can't remember his last name. Is it
Daniel
Daniels?
Defense.
Yeah, is it Danny? I don't remember his name. Anyway, he basically gave the middle finger to the citizenry, and I mean that's the thing though is like some of these guys they have the contracts, the military contracts, and stuff like that, and they're like, nah, we're okay with a ban on assault weapons for citizens, and that's the thing, like that crap, it needs to stop. I mean, I would like to start. I would love to start seeing. Um, I would love to start seeing that within the community, within the industry. Like Shot Show. Shot Show is kicking off this week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see basically. I mean, the ATF and FBI and all that stuff. They're going to have booths there. I would love to see people they need to demonstrate in front of the booth. Like I wish, I mean, a normal people like the average citizen can't really get into those unless they have good reason and stuff like that. But they need to get bombarded with questions. They need to get like things need to happen, which is
People need to get vocal.
yeah, it's time to start getting vocal, majorly.
All right, so let me drop this in to preface, because if y'all are watching this on Facebook or YouTube, this has been alluded to about 4 times in the last 55 minutes. Everybody's wanted to talk about what happens in 120 days. And what happens in 120 days is that the ATF has released their final ruling on pistol braces, and there's going to be about 40 million new felons in 4 months. Merry
Unfortunately,
Christmas, y'all. Have fun.
unfortunately, I in 120 days, I hope they release the statistics on who applied for the amnesty, and who like, I would love to see I would love to see the numbers of, okay, we estimated between 10 to 40 million uh, people have these braces. I would love to see the number that actually submitted paperwork, that submitted did whatever. I'd love to see that actual number, because I really think that people need to not comply. Unfortunately, you're going to have people that will comply. And the thing is, though, is uh, I can't remember if it was a meme or not, but I know I was thinking about it, and the whole thing of like, well, just send in all your information if during this 120-day amnesty period. You have to send in, you have to do all this information, you have to do all this paperwork, send it in, and the ATF will determine whether or not you qualify for the amnesty period, and you qualify for the NFA. Like, so you'll get they're offering free tax stamps in some cases. The only thing that pops in my head with that is, what is it? Admiral, was it Akbar? It's a trap. Like, that right there, like, that's all this is, because they want so much information in order for you to do this. Like, they want pictures. They want pictures of the firearm with the brace attached, because they want to make sure they can verify, quote unquote, that it's a firearm that does in fact meet the criteria. Excuse me. And pictures. They want like banking information. They want like social security number. They want address. They want phone number. Like, they want so much information from you that you might as well send. If you ever did send that in, you might as well sit your dog in front of the front door and get ready for the freaking thing, the place to get raided, because it's only a matter of time. Like, they know where these are at. So when they don't get compliance, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to start going after the people that submitted certain things, and they're going to be like, and they're going to start making it, and you're going to see the media do a spin on it, saying that this person was caught with an illegal firearm and illegal in SBR, and they're going to try to make an example out of them.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to the people who comply with this, and then they try to convince everybody else on social media that they're the smart ones in the goon squad because they got a free tax stamp by bending the knee.
If I find out that people are in the Facebook group or whatever, if I find out that you are pushing for people to register their stuff, I will block you. I will log into Facebook, which I hardly ever do
Which
nowadays,
he hasn't done in months.
and I will find you and I will block you. I will kick you out of the group, because that is, you do know, this is ridiculous. You do not comply. Like, I'm not calling for violence, but just don't comply. Like, this is ridiculous. We as citizens, as United States, as Americans, we have a duty not to comply with unconstitutional laws. And this is straight up unconstitutional. And going back to the first comment that I made earlier, saying I give my hat off to the ATF for doing what they did, because they knew what they were doing. Back when SB Tactical, and back when these braces were coming out and everything like that, okay, yeah, you can do it. They granted them. SB Tactical, they have the letter of approval from their ATF rep. And then I remember when it came out and was like, you can't shoulder them. Don't shoulder them. You can use them like a cheek rest. You can use them, Okay. Well, then all of a sudden came out was like, nah, if you need to shoulder them, you can. It's whatever. That right there, that was like, they knew what they were doing.
They baited the trap, huh?
They knew what they were doing. They knew that people are among the like in the community. I mean, everybody loves, a 16 inches is great for, especially long range stuff like that. They know that everybody loves like a shorter barrel. They knew everybody like was in like they wanted a shorter barrel. They wanted an SBR, but the NFA makes it ridiculous. It's stupid. So what can they do? They freaking set the trap. So now they have 10 to 40 million freaking people that are now felons because they were like, we're gonna express it's our Second Amendment. I'm expressing my freedom. I have a rifle, I have a 5.56 rifle, a 5-inch barrel. Does it do anything? No, it looks freaking cool. Nope, illegal.
It makes FUD range officers cry.
Right. And that's fine. But it's ridiculous. This is so dumb. And I mean, and what like Chris was saying, and I hope it doesn't get that far. I really hope the Supreme Court freaking takes it up. I know FPC and like Gun Owners America and stuff like that. I know they are already like mounting a defense against this.
Lawsuits were filed when the preliminary when the stupid form 99 4999 or whatever it was, the point system, when that got released, the lawsuits got filed.
Oh,
the lawsuits have been on hold waiting on the ATF to get their pink panties out of their butt and finally drop the final rule. And now that it's finally been dropped, the lawsuit printer is screaming.
And so if you are anybody who likes to donate to any of these causes, FPC is the one that I've been donating to now. I think this is my 3rd year, and donate to them. Stop donating to the NRA. My understanding, like I haven't seen crap from the NRA on this. Of course, they'll probably jump on it here shortly and say that they're pushing and doing all kinds of stuff, trying to save face, but FPC, like, donate to them, support them. Those guys are fighting for our freedoms left and right. That's crazy, the lawsuits and stuff. I mean, Michigan, basically, when the rep from Dearborn submitted his bill wanting to basically ban AR-15s and all that stuff, FPC was like, they released something on their Instagram the next day. It was like, hey, we're watching this closely. Like, they're on top of it. And it's ridiculous. Like the ATF needs to be disbanded completely, wholeheartedly. And it's getting out of control. Like they're actively they're pretty much making laws without going through Congress, and that's illegal.
They're trying to. I will say that, like, I am going to be waiting. Hopefully, we're going to have a good old laugh and a beer in the next couple of weeks or months about how the ATF got their, PP slapped hard, repeatedly even. But, I mean, I'm not shocked that the ATF is doing this. The ATF needs to create felons to justify themselves as an agency.
Yeah.
And what they call a loophole or a workaround or whatever is what I call citizens read the law, citizens figured out how to comply with your freaking stupid, ridiculous laws. And you're pissed because they outsmarted you. So you change your rules retroactively. But it's like I've said over and over and over, Congress has the ability to friggin' make pistol braces disappear overnight with a wave of a pen if they can get the votes together and if they want to put their name on it. But my issue is that 3-letter agencies have no such right or purview or power or authority. None. So while it would be entertaining as hell to watch an actual piece of legislation get drugged through the freaking courts and eventually declared unconstitutional, I have less than no patience for a 3-letter agency trying to invent law where there is none. And pistol braces weren't even thought of when the NFA was authored. So there is no way on God's green earth you can now come back and say that this thing, which, by the way, you said was legal a handful of years ago, is suddenly a stock, because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? I own things with stocks, and absolutely none of them have a hole through the middle of them for you to put your arm.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, the thing is like there's been so much that's been getting slapped down. I almost feel like they're just taking whatever and throwing it against the wall to find out what'll stick.
Well,
And
I go ahead.
oh, and I was gonna say, and I so far really nothing has stuck, and they're finding themselves. I mean, they're grasping at straws. They're trying hard. Like I don't remember this much of a push. There hasn't been this much of a push to restrict the rights of Americans um, in years. Like this is like they're trying a lot of stuff as of recently in the last year or so. And granted, maybe it's because of the new administration and all that stuff like that. But even under like Obama and stuff like that, I don't remember this much of a push to disarm Americans. Like it was always talked about and stuff like that, but it wasn't. I don't remember it being this active.
I have two theories. First of all, I think that this administration pretty much rode into the White House telling all agencies, this is my agenda, figure out a way to make it happen. I mean, that's what we saw with the vaccine mandates trying to get shoved through OSHA, an agency that has never on earth had any authority to mandate a vaccine, but suddenly they were trying to push it through OSHA because they found this little obscure piece of legalese that they thought they could cling to. This is why we're seeing so many of these executive level agencies being utilized in ways they were never designed to be used to push actions they were never meant to push, because that is the administration's will and the administration demands it, and the administration has said, all of you figure out a way to make this stuff work. So whoever puts their hand up with an answer that might stick gets the carrot. That's theory number one. Theory number two is that the ATF, this administration, the anti-gun side, they all feel like they have something to win regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they get any of these rules through, they win. If it gets slapped down, it's red meat for the next election cycle. To basically say, well, look, we tried to do it this way, but it didn't work. And if y'all would vote more of us into office, then we can legislate it and this, that, and the air, and blah, blah, blah. If we don't maintain control of the White House, we can't appoint more Supreme Court justices, so the courts will be balanced and fair and not be activists. They either win an action or they win a talking point. But the anti-gun side has proven one thing time and time again, and that is the fact that there's no rational stopping point to their ideology short of full ban, full disarmament. There is no rational point at which they will say, this is enough. This is enough. We'll stop right here. Because if that was the case, they would have said from day one, this is what we want. Once we accomplish this, we'll stop. Mm-hmm. And they have never stopped once. The goalpost has always moved. It has always advanced in one direction. It has never gone back the other direction, with the exception of the 1994 assault weapons ban sunsetting in 2004. Thank God we had the brilliance to friggin' demand that amendment and put a sunset on that. But I promise you, these people ever friggin' go for an assault weapons ban again and they think they have the votes to and they think the Supreme Court won't slap it down, they will never allow a sunset again, because they know when the political winds shift, it will get swept out. Mm-hmm. But these people will not stop. They don't know how. They don't know what an endpoint is. They don't know what rational is or reasonable or compromise. Compromise means you give something to get something. When these people tell you they want you to compromise, what they really want you is to shut up, hand over your freaking guns, and quit your complaining, because you are the plebes and they are the friggin' elites and they know what's best for us. And I'm sorry to say, but we normal people are getting a little bit freaking fed up with that. And I've got a sack of freaking feathers and a bucket of tar out back just waiting for somebody to freaking stroke me the wrong way. And even though we might be a touch angry about it, I can promise you, all you three-letter agencies out there, all of you feds, the further you keep pushing, the more normal people are going to get pissed off and woken up. The more pro-Second Amendment organizations are going to spring up, the more lawsuits are going to get filed, and the more you are going to get drugged into court kicking and screaming and made to look like morons. Or you could go take a look at the Second Amendment. It's pretty self-explanatory. knock off all your bull crap, and
Yeah.
let people have freedom. It's a crazy ass concept, but it just might work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting ridiculous. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But I
I'm
don't know.
definitely leaving the calm one on your subtitle from now on because you are the calm one.
Yeah. It. I don't know. I really don't know what to think about it. The only thing I hope is that it gets taken care of. It gets slapped down. Uh, and I think it will. I mean, there's no precedent. There's nothing backing this. And the thing is, though, is like they're doing it solely based off of just control, and then money because they're not seeing. I would, I would, I would be interested to see, and because what's interesting is one of the whole things is not only because they're more concealable and they're dangerous, stuff like that. They're pissed because the braces made it easier for people to have an SBR without going through the NFA. Hence, they don't have to pay the extortion tax just to have an SBR. And so it'd be interesting to see what like how many people filed for SBRs since they said okay to braces and stuff like that. How many? What did their SBR quota go from? Like what number to what number, and then how did that affect the tax stamp and stuff like that? I would be kind of curious to see it because I almost feel like I almost feel like it's a revenue thing. Like the revenue went down because they don't have so many people putting in for SBRs. So I don't know it.
So you think this is just pure money grab, huh?
Well, I mean, it's a money and control grab. It's ultimately it's control. That the number one thing is it's all to me it's control. It is I think it is money because they're looking at if 40 million people if on the high side 40 million maybe more, which I'm guessing more, all registered and had to pay the $200. Say that they didn't do the 120 or the 120-day amnesty period, whatever, but they still had to pay because the amnesty period doesn't mean that it's not automatic. It's not promised that you're going to get waived and get a tax stamp. That's you have to submit photos, you have to submit fingerprints, all this crap, and then they might say, yeah, we'll grant you amnesty or we'll grant you a tax stamp, free of charge. I'm kind of curious to how many they're going to do that, but I doubt. I would be very surprised if they did it very often. And
That dropped
yeah,
in the chat.
exactly. Yeah, no, I
TGC
saw
said they
that.
lost
Yeah,
$250 million due to braces.
exactly. So so not only is it a grab to basically create felons overnight and for control, but it's a money grab. It's all the tax stamp it's a money grab and it's for control. 100%, nothing else. Not one other single. It's not to protect the public. It's not to if they really because if tax stamps and the NFA were actually to protect quote unquote the public, they would remove suppressors because that would protect
If
the public.
if the ATF was if our government was interested in protecting the public, they would probably stop trafficking firearms to the Mexican cartels. But that's
Yeah,
none of my business. Or leaving, billions of dollars of firearms overseas in
84
Afghanistan.
billion or something like that or million. I don't remember what it was,
What
but
what the
it was a high
f's?
number of but not only firearms but tanks, helicopters, Humvees, night vision, and not to mention more other stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. What's interesting, and before we, I guess, probably wrap this up, is if it really wants to make you kind of upset, something with the ATF, they're looking to destroy the evidence from Fast and Furious. They want to get rid of it and say, nah, it's been this many years, we don't need it anymore. But yeah, So
I'm sorry, but I'm at a point where I just think that I don't think there's any political will for the government to investigate the government and find themselves guilty of wrongdoing. It's like I said recently on, and Chris B is saying it's justifying their existence, which I
mhm.
think is a lot. I think is a lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like what the ATF desperately needs is to justify to the American people and to the government at large that they have a need to exist. Therefore, what they need is high profile busts. They need action that results in felonies and new regulations. They need all that. The whole idea of like they're just collecting money from tax stamps that could be done by the IRS, frankly. Because I mean, the ATF used to be a department of the Treasury. Well, it used to fall under Department of Treasury, if I recall correctly. But like, if all they did was collect money from tax stamps and process that paperwork, they don't need what they are. The only way they need that is if we have another Waco or another Ruby Ridge, or if we have
Mhm.
another very large, very high profile bust of felonious gun owners. And I
Mhm.
think that's what they're pushing towards. They need that to prove to everyone they have a reason to exist. They need another Unabomber. They need another, because I mean, it's not just BATF, this is BATFE. They investigate explosives too. They need another Oklahoma City bombing. They need another Boston Marathon bombing. They need that because it justifies to everybody why they exist in the first place.
Mhm.
So when I see an attempt to make 40 million more felons overnight, all I see is they just they are they are reinterpreting rules in double air quotes to justify their own, to make more felons, to justify the fact that see you really need us because look at all these felonious gun owners that are doing the stuff they're not supposed to. That's why I exist. Even though there wouldn't be all those felonious gun owners if you'd stop reinterpreting your rules every 5 seconds.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and roll this one out, man. I mean, is there any like, is there any? There's good news here. There, there appears to be some will in some of these circuit courts and the Supreme Court to smack these three little agencies on the top of the head and tell them to knock off the bullcrap. I don't. I personally, and I've said this time and time again, up to the moment where politicians and legislatures are held individually liable for passing unconstitutional laws, I don't think we're ever going to see an end to this.
No,
Like there has to be a point at which you pushed a law, it was found to be unconstitutional, that has to bar you from public service for life. That
well,
has to have consequences. It
well, you
has to. And being barred from public service is like the least bad consequence
yeah.
for a lot of these people. I would love to see him put in prison, and that would really cool this idea of, well, we're just going to pass all these laws because you know that your signature could be your one-way ticket to prison if you pass something, if you push something that is unconstitutional. People will argue that that would cool the legislative process, and I say, good. It should be cooled. These
Mhm.
people should be afraid. That's when the government is afraid of the people, there's liberty. What do you get when the people are afraid of the government?
Well, we're getting there now.
No, we're
And
we're
you
getting
see it, and you
well.
see it around the world. That's the thing is you see it around the world. China, Brazil, like Brazil's going freaking ape shit. Um, but Argentina, Russia, really. I mean, you see it. I mean, Russia came in and they basically was like, "Hey, these people are serving," and they took people and forced them to serve. Like, I don't know. It's the government needs to fear the people, and we're getting to that point to where I think and I really feel, and I really, the thing is though, and this can be a whole different show, is the community needs to rally around. It needs to rally. There's so many people like I mean, just like the government has kept the population itself fighting amongst each other, white, black, whatever color you are, like trans, non gay, straight, whatever. Like they keep people fighting amongst each other so much that they can do this crap. Imagine if the people, especially say a group such as a Second Amendment group of everybody that supports the Second Amendment, whether you say, well, it's just for hunting, or I believe I should own everything. Like, imagine if every single freaking person got together and said, you know what, I don't care at the end of the day, what your political belief is on certain things, but we have this in common. Let's get together and let's rally. If we could organize and actually work together, they would stand no chance.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and tie this one off of that, man. I think to put what you're saying into another set of words, the moment the Second Amendment community stops fighting for a person's individual right and starts fighting for everybody else's rights all at the same time, that's when I think things will change.
Mm-hmm.
When the FUD says that assault weapons ban is out of bounds because it doesn't affect me but affects somebody else, that's when things will change.
Right.
When the guy who doesn't understand why everybody has suppressors is fighting for the HERE Act or to have suppressors removed from the NFA registry, that's when things will change. Things will change when we all stand together and we all start pushing in the same direction. Things will change when people stop saying, well, if you're 19 or 20 years old, you shouldn't have firearms. If that pisses somebody off, I hope it sure does, because it pissed me off when you said it. Sanctimonious bastard you are. Matter of Fact's podcast heading out the door. Say goodnight, Andrew.
Good night, Andrew.